Welcome. Bob Masson over here from SWF Home Inspections, and we're proud to be sponsoring today's FR Update with Margy Grant. Margy Grant is the Chief Executive Officer for Florida REALTORS, the largest professional trade association in Florida. Grant earned her Juris Doctor degree cum laude at the Suffolk University School of Law in Boston and her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of New Hampshire in Durham, New Hampshire. She is a member of the Florida Bar, Massachusetts Bar, and the California Bar. Grant joined Florida REALTORS in 2005 and last served the State Association as a Chief Operations Officer and General Counsel before taking on the CEO position in January of 2019. Please welcome Margy Grant.
Thanks, Bob, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm so excited to be with you. I really am looking forward to being with all of you in person. Sarasota, Manatee is one of my all-time favorite places to visit. So hopefully the next time we're all together, we will be in person. So there's a lot going on at Florida REALTORS, and if you'll allow me, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start with an advocacy update, because I'm sure that many of you are aware that we have ceased our ballot initiative. And there have been obviously a lot of questions with regard to our plan to cease it. However, I want to share with you what I will call the real story. All right. Okay. So you'll all remember that, gosh, early last summer, we launched Housing Funds for Housing. Coming out of the 2021 session, the REALTORS were significantly disappointed by the actions of the legislature. And we felt that there was little or no attention to the actual need to address the affordability crisis that is gaining here in Florida. We were extremely disappointed with the cut to the Sadowski funds, and we felt that it was really, really important that the Realtor Association stand up for housing. All of you joined with us, and I cannot thank every single one of you who engaged enough to work with us. What's interesting is whenever you do something bold, and I'll share with you, somebody else told me that it was brazen, it's amazing how many people will stand up and look. And during the last 3 months, we have restarted the conversation about the importance of affordable housing and attainable workforce housing in Florida. Over the last 6 weeks, the leadership team and I have engaged in significant conversations with the legislature, with the legislative leadership in Tallahassee, and not just the current leadership. We've also had discussions with the future leadership. So when you think about the next 5 years, we have had conversations with individuals who will lead Tallahassee to make sure that any ideas that come forward will be implemented. So what does that all mean? Well, in chatting with the legislature, they were significantly interested in why we did what we did. Why did we need a ballot initiative when home affordability was important to them? And we explained to them that we had real issues with how they had handled the funding issue. And they said, okay, then what if we partnered? What if we got together and said, what do we need to do now? What a lot of people don't realize is that realtors are solution-based individuals. And when faced with a problem, we will look in every single direction to solve that problem. The ballot initiative timeline was a minimum of 3 years. If you think about it, we would have gone to the ballot in 2022. We would have had it to be implemented in 2023. It likely would not have been implemented exactly how we would have wanted it, so we would have had to gone back in 2024, meaning that there really wouldn't be any actual feeling of funding until 2024 or 2025. We have the opportunity to see real funding in 2022. The problem is now. We have record low interest rates, but we have record high housing prices in the state of Florida. If any of you saw the August housing release, you'll see home sales continue to rise in Florida. They've slowed slightly, but they're still increasing. And the condo market is on fire. The condo market, which used to be the affordable unit, we now have a challenge, and that is to qualify for some of the competitive mortgages out there. Your everyday hero, they don't have the down payment needed to qualify for that mortgage. So the question becomes, how do we help them? At the same time, how do we help them while protecting current programs in place that protect the most vulnerable and house those that cannot house themselves? So without touching the SHIP program, without touching the sale program, we are proposing and we are filing legislation to create a new down payment assistance program for hometown heroes. This will be down payment assistance and closing cost assistance for people like law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, healthcare professionals, and educators. All of these people who have kept us going during the pandemic. You know, it's so funny because 2020 seems so long ago, but as President Grooms and I know, it's not. 2020 was one of the most fascinating years of all of our lives, in some good ways and in some not so good ways. And as we have walked through this pandemic together, there has been one group of individuals that kept us going, and those were our hometown heroes. They went to work every single day to protect us, to keep the Florida economy going, and to make sure that we were taken care of. When I think about what the teachers went through, when I watch my own children go to school on Zoom, we need to do something to make sure that they can achieve the dream of home ownership. And we cannot wait. We need to do it now. So you will be hearing lots more about this program in the coming weeks. We are so excited to welcome all of you back to an in-person Great American Realtor Days this coming February. So keep an eye on your calendars. There will be registration information available for all of you in probably mid-January. But we are so excited to welcome all of you back to Tallahassee to go and sit down with our legislators and talk about this new proposal. So we are talking about a minimum of $50 million that we're looking for down payment assistance and closing costs for just this demographic. Understand, this will not change the availability of SHIP funds or the availability of sale funds. This is a new program with new funding. So where is the money going to come from? Well, originally it will come from the surplus, likely. Florida is a very, very lucky state where we have not been destroyed by the pandemic. Our lawmakers have been extremely prudent, made very, very good decisions. And the one thing people don't talk about that much is the realtors saved the day. And how did the realtors save the day? Truly, how did you completely save our economy? You were deemed essential in 2020. The governor deemed you essential and all of you stayed at work. All of you went out, you sold homes. And what happens when every time a home is sold in the state of Florida? The state benefits from the dock stamps. So understand that it was your efforts and our historic housing market that has kept the economy going. And so if any of you who are interested and would like to see a little bit more of a breakdown of some of these numbers, give me a call, shoot me a text. I'll send you all the information you're looking for. Congratulations to each and every one of you for keeping the economy going. And now, solution focused, we are looking to help the one demographic that helped us, that supported us. Let's keep the dream of home ownership alive for all of these amazing individuals, and we'll do it in a way where we celebrate them. So what's coming up? Well, we've got a timeline, right? We've got a legislative schedule. So what happened this week? Believe it or not, the 2022 legislative session started, and it started with what we call committee weeks. So we've got our legislative team on fire, all systems go in Tallahassee. You've got legislative weeks that go all the way through the end of November. Following that, we have an early legislative session. What does that mean? It means that when legislative session starts, it's going to be cold. So the legislative session starts on January 11th. That is the bill filing deadline. And right after that will be the midwinter business meetings, where you'll have lots and lots of updates, all of the issues facing Florida realtors. And some of the issues I talk about, you want to talk about insurance. We want to talk about condo reform. We want to talk about all of those issues that impact your business every single day. We are excited to welcome again all of you back in person to Great American Realtor Days on February 7th and 9th. And then you will see the entire legislative process really jump into action. The entire thing will wrap on March 11th, 2022. Florida is a very unique state. We have an opportunity to get so much done in so little time. So what did happen in 2021? What was the good news? Ladies and gentlemen, because of your advocacy and any one of you that gave to RPAC last year, on behalf of Florida Realtors, I want to say thank you. The difference that you all made in terms of creating relationships with our legislators through RPAC is second to none. And it is all because of Realtor advocacy. The one piece of legislation I want to call all of your attention to, because it was the most important one to me, when the pandemic hit and you were deemed essential, President Barry and I woke up every single day with a problem. And the problem was, how did we keep all of you safe and keep all of the consumers you were working with safe? And you all stepped up incredibly. You all followed COVID protocols and made sure that we were not inadvertently endangering the consumers by spreading COVID by acting badly. So I want to thank all of you for doing that. But there was something else that President Barry and I kept us up at night, and that was the lawyers. You all heard my bio. And in all seriousness, I now owe him $5 because it makes me sound much more qualified than I really am. But as a recovering attorney, I have not practiced law in about 2.5 years. I want to share with you that the one thing that was always on my mind when we were talking about you being deemed essential and you all being out in the field and selling real estate, and that was what would happen when a overzealous attorney decided that they were going to sue you or your broker because they had alleged that you had somehow irresponsibly or negligently spread COVID while selling or showing real estate. Well, one of the first bills passed in the legislative session in 2021 was the COVID-19 Liability Protection Bill. This bill protects realtors everywhere from bogus lawsuits that come at you and basically say that you somehow did something wrong. And the COVID-19 liability protection is simple. As long as you follow leading medical advice, like from the CDC, you are fine. You cannot be sued for someone alleging that you somehow spread COVID. So understand that the COVID-19 liability protection stopped the lawyers in their tracks who were preparing to sue people for somehow acting negligently through COVID. We had another groundbreaking announcement in the 2021 legislative session. For any of you who have not followed closely, one of our top legislative issues for the past 5 years has been to reduce and eliminate the business rent tax. What is the business rent tax? Florida is one of the only states that taxes leases on businesses. So, great example I can give you, a hairdresser. A hairdresser rents a normal space in a shopping mall or in a strip mall, and they sign a lease, sometimes 2-4-year leases. And on that lease, the total amount is taxed. There is a tax on that lease. We had a historic reduction announced for the business rent tax. So there's obviously a surplus of funds. There was an announcement made that they are going to go ahead and shore up the unemployment trust funds. Once those are shored up, and it'll probably take a year or two, they will then immediately move to reduce the business rent tax to the total of $1.23 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is incredible for the state of Florida. It makes us more competitive. If you have a small or a medium-sized business thinking that they're going to relocate to Florida, and they compare us to a state like North Carolina, and they are running the numbers and it's close, they might go to North Carolina because they don't have a business rent tax. Whereas if we can reduce or eliminate ours, we become more competitive. So that is great for business owners everywhere. It is great for the competitiveness of Florida, and we applaud the legislature for what they did. They continue to move to protect the environment. As one of our past presidents says, ladies and gentlemen, people do not come to Florida for our mountains. They come for our waterways. And for any of you who participated in our waterway cleanup last July, thank you. We historically cleaned up more miles of waterways, streams, oceans than we ever have in the past. So thank you for doing that. We are proud to partner with the legislature to keep Florida beautiful. On the screen, you see all kinds of other things that we were able to achieve. It's been pretty amazing. So a couple statistics. I know this is kind of small. You can zoom in if you can't see it well. It just shows the number of bills filed and the number of bills that actually passed. When you see the thousands of bills that were filed and the ones that actually passed, and then you look at that victory sheet, ladies and gentlemen, your industry is getting it done, but we can't do it alone. The only reason Florida Realtors is successful in Tallahassee in protecting private property rights and the real estate industry is because of all of you. Your willingness to be advocates for your industry, as well as your willingness to participate and invest in your profession, is why we are successful. So one last reminder, any one of you who gave to RPAC last year, thank you so much. If you haven't given this year, we invite you to write that check today. But I want to make sure you all understand that the success on the screen is 100% attributed to all of you. All right, so just to let you know is we are super excited about the future, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up another PowerPoint and give you some other updates, because that honestly is, and I get so excited talking about our legislative successes because I know that it's only because of what all of you do. So I'm going to make sure that I don't have any questions in the chat. I don't think I do, but if I have any questions that I'm missing, someone just yell and I'll go ahead and answer them. All right, so what else is going on? All right, there's a lot going on in the federal space with regard to the real estate industry. There's a lot going on between the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice. There are several notable lawsuits going on that I want to chat with you about. And there's also finally been a resolution to the eviction moratorium, all 100% driven by your advocacy efforts. All right, so let's talk about the Department of Justice, and let's talk about why they were mad then, why they're mad now. And I also want you all to know is who is Rex and why are they mad? So some of you may recall that a little bit more than a year ago, there was an announcement that there was a settlement between the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice with regard to some allegations that the Department of Justice made with regard to activity that they felt the realtors were engaging in that they felt was anti-competitive. And it wasn't that complicated. And it was also, in all candor, slightly uninformed. So they had a real concern that we had realtors who were advertising their services as free or they weren't free. And what was interesting is they wanted us to stop doing that. Well, our code of ethics already precludes that. If you are working with a buyer who is purchasing a property and you are the cooperating broker, you're not allowed to tell the buyer that your services are free when you're being compensated by the listing broker. But we had already addressed that. They wanted to make sure that in terms of illustrating information to the consumer, that the consumer had all of the information at their fingertips. So they asked us to start publishing the cooperating fee to the consumer that was going to be paid to the cooperating broker. Again, not a problem. Any of you who have sat through a real estate closing understand that is clear as day on the closing disclosure as well as the closing statement. So it was a little surprising to me that this was such a big deal when this is readily accessible information and it is never something that we hide the ball on. The other thing they wanted us to do was they wanted to have non-realtors to have access to lockboxes. And, okay, if that was something that we had to do because it was anti-competitive, not a problem. We stood ready to do that. So a settlement was announced between the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice. Fast forward to the change in administration, and something very strange happened. For the first time in history, the Department of Justice announced their withdrawal from a settlement agreement and basically said that they were not going to honor the agreement that was entered into by the Department of Justice and the National Association. There was a lot of suspicion that this was politically motivated because we had had to change in administration. And so the Biden administration didn't have to respect what the previous administration did. But at the same time, this was unacceptable to us. And we were all very confused because we had worked very hard to make sure that whatever they thought we were doing that was anti-competitive, that we assured them that we are not anti-competitive. And there's a whole parallel conversation going on here. And that is the entire operation of the multiple listing service. And part of that conversation has been driven by a highly funded new brokerage firm called Rex. Who is Rex? So Rex is a non-traditional brokerage firm. We have all kinds of them that have a perfectly legal business model. However, they do not want to participate in the multiple listing service. So they have been making allegations, calling us uncompetitive for years, telling the federal government that we're uncompetitive. Ladies and gentlemen, to be totally candid, this is wrong. This is absolutely false. There has never been something more competitive than the multiple listing service. Why is that? Ladies and gentlemen, when you get a new listing, I want you to think about the steps that you actually walk into. When you get a new listing, you don't do what software engineers do or software productions do. When Coke or Pepsi come out with a new product, they go into a boardroom, they close the windows, lock the doors, and they tell everybody, don't tell anyone anything. You all wake up every single day with the specific intention to cooperate with your competitors. No other industry on the planet does that. So for anyone to allege that we are anti-competitive, that in all candor is ridiculous. When a listing broker gets a listing, they immediately put it in the multiple listing service and share it with all of their competitors. And there's a cooperative offer of compensation. This is not anti-competitive. However, this well-funded, very willing to spend money company called Rex feels that it is. So they filed, and this is where it gets really interesting, they filed a federal lawsuit alleging violations of the antitrust laws against us and Zillow. You heard me correctly. We are now co-defendants with Zillow. So what's interesting is Zillow did become a brokerage firm in the past few years, and Zillow is now a proud member of the Realtor Association and participants in the multiple listing service. Well, Rex doesn't like that. They don't like the fact that Zillow wants to work with us and to abide by and respect the way that we do business through the multiple listing service. Instead, Rex wants to basically say that we are now partnering with Zillow. We are conspiring with them to somehow limit competition in this industry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And what's even funnier is that there are even judges that have started to say that you've got to stop. Like that every time Rex makes an allegation that somehow we are a syndicate, the judges are now telling them, stop using language like that. All of this is being litigated, but the question becomes is where do we go from here? Well, we advocate. We advocate for our industry. How can you help? Ladies and gentlemen, it is essential. Practicing realtors, you continually have discussions with your buyers, with sellers, with neighbors, with your agents. The MLS is pro-consumer. The MLS is pro-competition. It is really important that you continue to remind the consumer, the agents, the MLS is not a public utility. It is a tool that you all created and you all built to make sure that you could run a successful industry. In order for us to succeed, we all have to defend the multiple listing service in the market, not just in the courtroom. You all play a part in this. So just for example, you're taking a listing, have the conversation, explain to them how you use the multiple listing service to successfully sell their home. Explain to them how you offer a cooperative competition to the person that brings you a ready, willing, and able buyer who is the procuring cause. On the buying side, same thing. Educate the consumer as to what the multiple listing service is and why it is helpful to them in buying their home. All right, I'm going to pause there just in case any questions came up. I think I'm seeing any, but I'm just making sure. Okay. So, good news. This slide is old. The eviction moratorium has finally been resolved. The Supreme Court has finally ruled that the eviction moratorium was unconstitutional. Ladies and gentlemen, you as an industry stood up when the pandemic hit. You all stood up and you were willing to do everything.
Welcome back, Margy.
Hey, thanks so much. Technology is amazing until it's not. All right, so back to the eviction moratorium. So just to give all of you a little bit of inside baseball, is the Realtor Association held. Like, we did not fight the eviction moratorium right off the bat because nobody knew what the pandemic was going to bring. And we wanted to make sure that the vulnerable were protected. Well, once we started to see that the economy was moving again and that people were working, there was no reason for an eviction moratorium. And at that time, the only people who were being victimized were the private property owners, because at that time, you'll all remember, we had unemployment assistance, we had paycheck protection loans. What we didn't have was any assistance for the landlords who were not allowed to evict their tenants. Now, day late and a dollar short, and I commend the federal government for finally getting the funding done, and the National Association of Realtors took the lead on this, and they were finally able to secure and offer tenant assistance. But any of you who are private landlords who have a tenant that you were not able to evict, who is not paying rent in the name of the pandemic, knows that accessing the rental assistance has not been easy. It has been extremely complicated. And pulling down those funds from the state level has been even more complicated. So at some point when the rubber hits the road, it's time to fight back. And so the Realtor Association sponsored litigation where we challenged the constitutionality of the eviction moratorium. In probably one of the more frustrating moments of my career, the Supreme Court ruled that the eviction moratorium was unconstitutional, but declined to overturn it because the justices at the time felt, well, it's going to expire at the end of the month. It's really not that big of a deal. Let it run its course. It's unconstitutional, but we're going to decline to overturn it. That's irresponsible. And you can tell the US Supreme Court that I said so. So, okay, we have everybody's agreement that the eviction moratorium is going to expire at the end of the month. What happens at the beginning of September and the beginning of August? It didn't expire. They renewed it. And the craziest part is even the administration knew that they couldn't do it.
In what I called a love letter to Congress, President Biden actually in a press conference said, I don't think we have the legal authority to extend the moratorium, so I call on members of Congress to help. So he was basically saying, hey, US Congress, please go ahead and enact an eviction moratorium because I can't. Due to your advocacy, again, huge shout out to RPAC here, due to your advocacy and the National Association of Realtors efforts, we were able to stop Congress and convince them not to enact a legislatively created eviction moratorium, that you cannot do this to private property rights. And they held, and we thought, okay, here we go, we're done. Until the CDC decided, oh, no, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a new eviction moratorium. So we're not extending the old one. We're not doing that because we're not allowed to, because that one's unconstitutional. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new one. And we're gonna say that there's an eviction moratorium in any place where the pandemic is surging. Are you kidding me? In the middle of the Delta variant, there was not a place in the United States where the pandemic was not surging. And I don't mean to make light of the situation, but you are talking about hundreds of thousands of small businesses and private property owners who were again told you cannot evict tenants for not paying, when there are hundreds of thousands of jobs available and unemployment is about at the same level it was pre-pandemic. This was ridiculous. So we refiled the litigation, we went back through the court system, and we went back to the Supreme Court. And thankfully, they did rule that it was unconstitutional. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your industry advocacy at work. But for the Realtor Association, there would still be an eviction moratorium in place. So congratulations to every single one of you for all of your advocacy, because I will tell you, you made a difference and it mattered. It really, really, really mattered. So, I say all of this to make sure that you understand the power of the Realtor Association, because it is absolutely second to none, incredible. So I'm going to pause there, make sure I don't have any questions. Okay, I don't. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come off the federal and I'm going to go back to state, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the products, tools, and services that are available to all of you. So first of all, is you've got your legal hotline. The legal hotline answers between 78 and 80,000 calls a year. I highly encourage you that if you need an incredibly quick turnaround, go ahead and call whenever you need to call. If you have an opportunity where you need to, where you can leave a message, feel free to leave a message. When you have that number of calls, we try very, very hard to keep the hold time under 3 minutes. And currently I'm proud to say the hold time is between 2 and 3 minutes, but understand, when is the hotline busiest? At lunch. The law says I have to feed the attorneys, so I'm happy to make sure that we're feeding them, keeping them strong. But understand we have to send them to lunch, so lunchtime is not the greatest time to call if you need an immediate answer. If you want to know the secret sauce, the best time to get the legal hotline, first thing in the morning. Legal hotline opens at 9 a.m. If you call at 9:01, you probably won't have a hold time. Other time to call is between 4:30 and 4:45. Same thing. You probably will not have a hold time if you call between 4:30 and 4:45. If you decide to leave a message, the current policy of the hotline is they will go ahead and they will call you back within 24 hours. So if it's not an urgent question, you want to call and leave a message, please feel free to do that. Tech helpline. They say with every challenge comes opportunity. Same thing is when the pandemic hit, one of the most popular conversations with the legal hotline was spamware, questions about viruses, making sure your systems were secure. Overnight, the questions to the tech helpline went to Zoom, to webcams, to internet assistance, to bolstering connectivity. So understand that the tech helpline evolves right along with your businesses. So whatever tech question you have for free a tech helpline. 8 hours a day, several times over the weekend, you can call the tech helpline with whatever tech problem that you have, and we highly encourage you to do that. For those of you who are not aware, you also have a statewide data share available to you called MLS Advantage. MLS Advantage does carry an offer of compensation with it. It is intended mostly for referral business and to give you the opportunity that if you have a buyer that's relocating, they're going from either Sarasota or Manatee and they're heading up to Jacksonville where you don't sell, you can jump into MLS Advantage and you can look at properties with your buyer or seller, and then you can refer them on up there. Or if for some reason you are living, a two location life where you're living in Sarasota, Manatee, you're a member of Stellar MLS, but you're also doing a lot of work down in Fort Myers. You have access to the Fort Myers listings. and there is an offer of compensation there. So MLS Advantage, all of these tools can be readily accessed at floridarealtors.org. Form Simplicity. Form Simplicity is our proprietary software that was built for realtors by realtors. And what's amazing is its usage increases every single month. Tech Helpline is available to walk you through all of the features of Form Simplicity, and we have regular programs for you to access reduced costs for e-sign, as well as all of the storage that you need. So I encourage you to take a second look at Form Simplicity if you're not using it. Couple other things I wanted to mention and make sure you're all aware of is there are some changes coming to the Florida Realtors contracts. So Florida Realtors, Florida Bar contract is the most popular form in our forms library. Second one, I know you'll all be very surprised, is the listing contract. So we have hundreds of thousands of people open the Florida Realtors Florida Bar contract in Form Simplicity every single year. So whenever we change that form, obviously it's a very, very big deal. So after a 3-year collaborative process with what we call our Realtor Attorney Committee, they have formalized and adopted updates to the Florida Realtors Florida Bar, some of you call it the FAR Bar, contract. They have updates both the standard contract as well as the as-is, as well as all of the addendums. So I share this with all of you because those changes are going to go into effect in the very near future. They have been posted at floridarealtors.org. Now, I'm wondering if I got a lot of people's attention, because usually when we start talking about changes to such a popular form, people get very, very excited. So because it's a huge tool in your business and we want to make sure that you have access to the most updated information. So if you would like to attend, we actually have a free seminar tomorrow. There's a free seminar. Again, you can register for it at floridarealtors.org on the updates and changes to the Florida Realtors Florida Bar contracts. I will share with you, we already have 2,000 people registered, and our technology is better than the technology I'm using today. So don't worry, there won't be a crash. But if you would like to participate in that webinar, please feel free to go ahead and register. I will go ahead and make sure your local association has that link in the event that you want to register today. But we've got over 2,000 people, and we know that that is super, super important. Your market has been on fire, and I know that I don't have to tell any of you that. However, as your market has been really, really crazy, you've also seen a lot of activity in your market that leads to a lot of questions. And one of those has to do with the escalation clause. Keep in mind, I'm no longer a practicing attorney, so this is not legal advice. The market has been so competitive, especially in Sarasota, Manatee, that we have had listings that when they go on the market, the listing broker is looking at 8, 9, sometimes 10 offers at a time. And Florida right now is a destination hotspot. During the pandemic, home took on a whole new meaning. People now look at their homes as literally their little place of paradise, and they want to make sure that they have the home of their dreams. And it's gotten so competitive that buyers are willing to do things that we really don't usually see them doing. And one of the most common things we've been seeing that's been reported on the hotline has been the escalation clauses that have been put into purchase contracts. What's an escalation clause? Well, this is one of those clauses that says, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm offering to buy your house at $400,000. But if a competing offer comes in that's higher, I will pay $5,000 more than your highest offer that comes in. Okay, that's pretty unique. And obviously that's very attractive to a lot of sellers. The challenge is, if written incorrectly, the seller could be biting off more than they could chew. For example, they offered 400. What happens if an offer came in at 500? Are they really willing to pay 505? So those are the kinds of things the seller has to be very aware of. The other thing that as realtors we have to be very careful about is advising a buyer to purchase a property above appraised value. What do I mean by that? Right now, we have buyers left, right, and sideways buying homes that above appraised value. And you all have seen this in your market. So what Florida Realtors has done, and we have published, is an escalation clause form that is now available in the Form Simplicity library or the transaction desk or the ZipLogic or whatever platform your forms are on. If the Florida Realtors library is on your platform, you should have the escalation clause, because we partner with all of the platforms. So the escalation clause has been published. You have it available to you. highly recommend that if you have a buyer that would like to put an escalation clause into a purchase contract, that you use that form, because that has protections for the buyer, for the seller, but also the broker. So we highly recommend that you take a look at that form to make sure that you're not exposed to any liability in the event that your buyer wants to go way above and beyond asking or even appraised value. So that form is available. There's a Q&A available for it. So please feel free to go ahead and access that at your convenience. So what else is going on at Florida Realtors? So in the audience, I wonder how many of you have the GRI designation. I hope a lot of you. The GRI designation has been one of our most popular education programs, and Sarasota Manatee offers it regularly. I highly encourage you, if you have not taken a look at GRI, to evaluate whether or not that would be a good educational experience for you and your business. It has a lot of very solid information, and I highly encourage you to take a look at it. Florida has the largest number of GRIs in the country. And I will share with you that on average, they do tend to average more income than folks who do not carry the GRI designation. So highly encourage you to take a look at that. The Realtor Association of Sarasota and Manatee has a robust and incredible education program, and we partner with them to offer our CE Express programs. So there's a renewal time. When you've got renewal deadlines coming up, make sure you're hitting those CEs, make sure you've got everything in place. When we talk about CEs and renewals, obviously that makes us think about the Department of Professional and Business Regulation, DBPR. Our regulator is known as the FREC, the Florida Real Estate Commission. We have been so fortunate that Darla First, Sarasota's very own, was a longtime Florida Real Estate Commissioner. She was a huge advocate for our industry, and I will tell you, I loved working with her when she was in that position. Darla is a huge advocate, and if you ever have questions about the FREC and how it operates, give her a call, shoot her an email. I know she would be happy to chat with you. If you ever have questions you want to chat with me about, you're welcome to let me know. It's interesting that just this week, the Florida Real Estate Commission held what they call a rules workshop. And they had a proposal on the table where what they wanted to do was to expand the requirements around advertising. And specifically, they had inserted some language which talked about the need to meet the requirements for advertising in all communications, including text messages and any other kind of electronic message. What are they targeting here? Well, I hope none of you are doing this, but there are definitely agents out there that are sending unidentified text messages to consumers who own property saying, I see you own property at 28 New Britain Road. Are you interested in selling it? But they don't identify who they are, who they work for, or that they're a broker or a real estate licensee. And there's a concern about that. And we want to evaluate whether or not that should be something that should carry some kind of an identification. There's also lots of questions about online activity and social media activity. We had the opportunity to testify. Myself and two of your leadership team members, as well as our general counsel, Joanna Watkins, were present at the Florida Real Estate Commission yesterday. And it is chaired currently by a guy right north of your area named Dick Fryer. Dick is an incredible industry advocate, runs an amazing real estate commission meeting. And we testified in front of the commission, and what we let them know was, listen, we know that there is a problem. We applaud the fact that the Real Estate Commission wants to address it. Here was the industry's concern. If they were to pass those rules right now, what would likely happen? Most of you would go out of your way to comply. Most of you would be willing to invest financially if you needed to make changes to your business model or to the way you were communicating to make sure you were complying. Would the bad actors who are actually the problem, the ones who are sending solicitations that shouldn't be doing it, or the ones who are intentionally leading with blind advertising, would they make those changes? I would highly suspect that they would not. And realistically, the rules currently in place preclude blind advertisements. So do we really even need the extended rule? So what we asked the Real Estate Commission was, let's partner. Let's meet with the new secretary, Julie Brown, phenomenal professional. She is awesome for our industry. She's formerly a broker. She's from your neck of the woods, amazing individual. And let's also partner with the executive director of the FREC, Katie McGinnis. They were completely willing to do that with us, because what we want to chat with them about is current enforcement. We want to make sure that the investigators are out there looking at actual wrongdoers rather than trying to find problems where it's one of those, I sometimes say you're a solution looking for a problem. And so let's go after the bad actors. Let's do that first. And then once we get through that exercise, if we feel like we still need to go further with rulemaking, we'll do that. And this is where you are all so incredibly fortunate for the advocacy of your industry. Because sitting on the FREC right now, you have a majority of folks who are Realtor members, and they believe in your association. And they more importantly, they believe in you. And they want to make sure that you working with consumers is the highest and best experience a consumer can have, and that the consumers are protected. And I know that everybody on here today feels the exact same way. So we were really encouraged and delighted by the FREC's response to our concerns, and we'll keep all of you updated as we go forward. But currently that rule will not be adopted currently. So I'll go ahead and pause there. I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to our leadership team. President Cheryl Lambert of Citrus County, our president-elect, Christina Pappas, she is from Miami. Our vice president, Mike McGraw from the greater Orlando area. Our treasurer, Gia Arvin, who's up in Gainesville. And finally, our secretary, Tim Weishire, who's from Osceola County. Florida Realtors just held elections, and we are so excited to welcome to our team Chuck Bonfiglio Jr. from Fort Lauderdale. He will be joining our leadership team in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this year, President Cheryl Lambert asked us to dare to dream with her. And in doing so, she asked the state to unite to make sure that we were doing everything we could to provide the products, tools, and services that our members need to make a living. I hope some of the information I gave you today will help you do just that. The other thing President Cheryl wanted us to do was to remind all of our members, as well as the public, of the incredible charity arm that Florida Realtors conducts every single day. A lot of people don't realize that Florida Realtors empowers 4 different wholly controlled charities. The first one is the Disaster Relief Fund. Florida Realtors runs an independent disaster relief fund, and we respond in huge effort whenever there's any kind of a disaster. Just recently, we sent $50,000 to the Missouri Disaster Relief Fund with regard to the hurricane that hit then. We also sent an additional $50,000 to the California Association of Realtors to deal with the wildfires that have been so devastating to all of them. The Realtor Relief Fund is 20 years old today. What's the difference between the Disaster Relief Fund and the Realtor Relief Fund? The Realtor Relief Fund is the National Disaster Relief Fund. And they had an incredible effort this year to fundraise. I believe their original effort was to hopefully be $3 million. They have surpassed $8 million. So understand that your industry is also about the realtor heart. We want to make sure that we are giving back in the communities that we serve. And all of you are a huge part of that. Florida Realtors also has an education foundation for any of you who have kids who are becoming college age, possibly like me. We encourage you to take a look at our education foundation and see if the scholarship program might be something that your child qualifies for. The Education Foundation has a scholarship program. They give away almost $200,000 a year in scholarships, and it ranges from scholarships from $1,000 to $5,000. So it's a pretty good amount of money. So we highly encourage you or a family member of yours who's interested, apply for one of our scholarships. We also have our incredible and very near and dear to my heart, our Silent Angels. The Silent Angels are just that. They are silent. And so if any of you know someone who is down on their luck or really struggling and they need a lift up, they're going to be okay, but they need help just getting through this, we highly encourage you to take a look at Silent Angels. Silent Angels is an organization that looks to help people that are forwarded to them by others. So they don't take a lot of direct applications for need. Instead, it would be me saying, hey, listen, I've got a friend, Jesse, and he is struggling. He has had, just a tough time. He's been sick. He's got a plan for recovery, but his medical bills are getting really, really high. Could we possibly help him get back to work? That is the kind of application that Silent Angels looks at and awards all the time. So I encourage you to take a look at our Silent Angels. The Florida Realtors has one other charity, and that is our license plate. I hope many of you already have a Homeownership for All license plate. The license plate is extremely popular. All of the funds that come in from the license plate go to our Homeownership for All 501c3, and they consistently grant awards to places like Habitat for Humanity and other housing authorities across the state. So it is an affordable housing initiative, and I highly encourage all of you to get involved. So Jesse, I'm going to go ahead and pause there because I gave you guys a lot of information, and see if there are any questions that I can answer. Hi, Mike. The chairman of your convention, ladies and gentlemen, is on today. So let's give him a huge round of applause and a thank you for everything he did to make the first in-person Florida Realtors convention since the pandemic a tremendous success. So thank you so much, Chairman Mike. Okay. Jesse, I'm not seeing anything else. I think we get to wrap about 10 minutes early.
Thank you so much, Margy. We appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to her, and we will see you guys later.
Thank you so much. It was great to be with all of you.
Thank you.